Hello again, welcome back for my high school students. This week we are going to be looking at the second half of our shorter Summa reading. We are also going to be looking at a new paper and also going over the reading for next week. And so I can show you what you're going to be reading, give you a little background information. So this is going to be a information-packed lecture. If you want to just watch it in segments, that might be okay. Just pay attention to how far you've watched in, because I'm going to be giving you a lot of information. This is not an ideal way for us to do this, unfortunately, but this is what we've been given, right? So we're going to make the best of it. Again, as always, call me or email me if you have any questions or comments. You can also leave comments right below the video on the YouTube channel, and maybe other students would like to get a discussion going. I certainly will get back to you as soon as I see your comment or question. Maybe you've got a question that lots of people have and you would like to share it with the group, because maybe other people want to hear my answer as well. We are going to, first of all, let's talk about what you have due from last week. Last week I asked you to write your own Summa article on one of several choices that I gave you in class, or I told you you could make up your own if you wanted to, but I wanted it to be something relatively serious and meaningful, not something just silly. And I'm taping this on Wednesday of last week. So far I haven't heard any questions about people having trouble finding a topic for that. I hope that's going well. So that's due this week. Go ahead and send it in to me. I would love to read what you guys have to say. And later on in the lecture, I will tell you about your new writing assignment. But first of all, let's just dig right in to Aquinas's work. Some of you have expressed to me this is hard, and it is. Don't cut yourself some slack. This is stuff that many college students aren't really digging into. Most adults, frankly, in today's day can't handle. But I have faith in you guys. I believe in you. And I feel like, why not dig into the greatest minds that have ever lived? I'm a student too. St. Thomas is our teacher. He's your teacher and he's my teacher as well. And we are just learning from him. We are sitting at his feet and learning from him. I am a master teacher. So last week, we talked about his proofs for the existence of God, whether God could be proven to exist. Perhaps the evidence, God's existence is so evident that we don't need to prove it. So we talked about that. This week, I had you read and fill out another worksheet about what's the meaning of life, basically. What is our purpose? Why are we here? Why did God create us? What's the point of living? What is, as he says it, our happiness or our good? In what does it consist? This is a really important question that a lot of people just are busy. We get busy with jobs and schoolwork and friends and social media and all these things. And yes, even sometimes religious pursuits, when we're just going through the motions and we're just doing them because everyone else does it, because that's what's expected of us. And we don't stop and ask ourselves, why do I do this? What is the goal of all of this? So this is an important question. And St. Thomas tries to answer it. So let's take a look at what he has to say. If you don't already have a pen, piece of paper to jot down questions, if you have any, get one. You can pause the video and go get it. Please get out your worksheet that I sent you and I had you fill out. You can go ahead and scan them in or email them to me if you wish, but we're going to fill it out together. And so if you had trouble coming up with what is Thomas talking about? What does this mean? We're going to go over it all together. There were 8 articles, so there's a lot of material there. So go get that, and also get your shorter Summa book. Okay, so I'm assuming you paused the video and you went to get that, and now you're all ready. Let's take a look on page 131, and let's dig in. This question The overall question is, of those things in which man's happiness consists. What makes us happy, truly happy? His first article is whether man's happiness consists in wealth. Maybe it's just money. You know, we live with a lot of people who would probably answer it that way. Hey, I just want money. Money can buy anything I want. That'll make me happy. If I just had a little more money, that would make me happy. Let's see. Now, remember, I had you fill out the worksheet, not in the order that Aquinas writes it, but in the order that we can sort of reason it out with him. So I asked you to look at his answer, first of all, where he says, on the contrary. He says on page 132, man's good consists in retaining happiness rather than in spreading it. You know, if you're happy, you want to keep the happy, right? You don't want to give all the happy away, but money makes you happier when you give it away, right? It is better to give than to receive. So he says, man's happiness does not consist in wealth because of that. He points out, and I asked you in your worksheet, the two kinds of wealth. He said, first of all, there's natural wealth. It's like food, clothes, the stuff you need to stay alive and stay healthy, shelter, things like that. And then there's artificial wealth. Artificial wealth, in this case, is just a code word for money. Think about it. Money isn't worth anything, right? Dollar bills are pieces of paper. Quarters are little circles of metal that isn't even worth anything anymore. It's only worth what you can get with it, right? So natural wealth, food, clothes, shelter, we don't want for itself. We just want it because it will take care of us. It will keep us safe and healthy, that sort of thing. Artificial wealth, money, you only want it because it can buy natural wealth. It can buy a new house. It can buy you clothes. It can buy you food. So if the money is only good for buying natural wealth items, and the natural wealth items are only good for keeping you alive and healthy, then apparently that's not the goal. Money will not give you happiness. Okay, are you convinced? I'm convinced. All right, so let's look at some of the objections and Aquinas' reply to those. Okay, objection 1. Man's happiness must consist in that which has the greatest hold on man's affections. What do people love? What do most people really want? They want to be rich. They want to win the lottery. They want to inherit a bunch of money so they don't have to work anymore. So since the thing that brings happiness must be the thing that most people want, and most people want money, then money must bring happiness. Let's see how Aquinas answers that in his reply. It's pretty biting. He says, all material things obey money so far as the multitude of fools is concerned. Only fools are the ones who hunger after money. The people in that objection 1, all those people who chase after money, they'd be the fools. We don't want to be a fool. He said we need to use the judgment of wise people. And wise people don't chase after money constantly. That's not what they want most of all. Pretty good. Okay. Interestingly, there's a note, footnote number 2 on page 131. I love this. Peter Kreeft points out to us that there is a fallacy, a logical fallacy being committed in almost all of these. And here's the fallacy. Here's the example he gives. This is the top of page, well, this is at the footnotes of 132. The summum bonum, or the greatest good, is X. Wealth is X. Therefore, wealth is the greatest good. He points out this is the fallacy of the undistributed middle. If you've studied logic at all, you know about this. You know, if you fill it in with other things, you can see why it doesn't work this way. If we said elephants are big, whales are big, therefore elephants are whales. That is obviously not true. That does not work. But this is what the objections do. This is why they don't work. If we say Happiness is what all people want. Money is what all people want. So happiness must be money. It's the same as the whale and the elephant. It's not a logical argument. Not only is it just not true, because he said fools are the ones who want money, but it's not even a logical argument. Okay, let's look at objection 2. He says, happiness, Boethius, who was a philosopher, said happiness is a state of life made perfect by the aggregate of all good things. Happiness is having all good things. Well, how do you get all good things? Money. So money must be happiness. Aquinas replies, all things salable, that means that can be sold, bought and sold, can be had for money. Not so spiritual things. Money can only buy what money can buy. Money can't buy love, in the immortal words of the Beatles. Money can't buy health. Money can take you to the doctor, but it can't buy health. Money can't bring you friendship. So money is only good for the things that you can actually purchase, but there are many things that aren't purchasable, that are vital to happiness. Okay, and objection 3. Desire for the sovereign good never fails, but seems to be infinite. There's just no end to our desire for the good as human beings. But this is the case with riches more than anything else, since a covetous man shall not be satisfied with riches. What is it that people want and want and want? Riches. So this is that old fallacy again. The good is something we have infinite desire for. Money is something we have infinite desire for, so the good is money. Same wrong reasoning. And Aquinas points out that the desire for riches really isn't infinite, or it shouldn't be. He said, first of all, the desire for natural riches is not infinite. Like, we don't want an infinite amount of food, an infinite amount of clothes and houses. We want what suffices for us. He says, now, the desire for money, artificial wealth, is infinite, but not for everyone. He says it's a disorder. Disordered concupiscence, which is desire, animal desire. No, that's not the way I want to put it. Sinful desires, inordinate desires. He said it's a disordered desire to want more and more and more money. Remember, Dante told us a lot about getting our desires in order, our loves in order. Disordered love for money, which would be greed, is a love out of balance. So the people who feel this way in objection 3, the people who have this infinite desire for wealth, they're disordered. That's what Aquinas has to say. So now he's knocked it out. Wealth can't be the thing we all want. It can't be our greatest good, our happiness. Article 2, honors. Let's check out honors. Everybody likes to be honored. What does Aquinas say? I love this. Happiness is in the happy, but honor is not in the honored, but rather in him who honors. If you honor me for something, you're the one with honor. You're the one who has honor. You're giving it to me. I'm just the recipient. He goes on, and I answer that. Honor is only given to a man because there's something good in him already. Right? You don't just honor anybody. You honor them because they have some sort of excellence or virtue that is worthy of honor. But if you only get honor because you have an excellence or virtue worthy of honor, then it's the excellence or virtue that you already had in you that's the happiness or the good. Honor is just a byproduct. It's a side effect. All right? Let's look at the objections now. By the way, I'm going through this really fast. I hope you will go back and reread this and ponder and think about it, that you will, in 5 years, 10 years, come read this again and think about it again, because this is what life is all about. Why are we here? What should I spend my life striving for? And it's way too important to just toss off in an hour-long lecture and, we spend a little time reading and filling out a worksheet. This is life. This isn't schoolwork. This isn't worksheets. This is real life. But because of time constraints, because we have other things to do, and because there's a limit to how long you're going to sit and watch this video, if I make it 5 hours long or all day long, you're not going to want to sit and watch it. I'm condensing. Okay, so back to honors. Objection 1 for honors. Happiness is a reward of virtue. But honor is a reward of virtue, so happiness is honor. It's the same logical fallacy, right? So it ought to be easy to reply to it. His reply is, honor is not the reward of virtue for which the virtuous work, but they receive honor from men by way of reward as from those who have nothing greater to honor. Virtue's true reward is happiness itself. I don't become virtuous so people will honor me, because honor is my goal, honor is my happiness. I become virtuous because I want to become virtuous. Virtue is its own reward, in other words. Honor may come, honor may not come, but virtue is its own reward. Objection 2. And I'm flipping back and forth here. So, people of excellence and God, who is the person of greatest excellence, have happiness. But they're also given great honor. So, honor must be happiness. His reply is very similar to the reply we just talked about. The reason we honor God and the reason we honor persons of great excellence is because they already have virtue in them. They have an excellence in them. It's not, the excellence is what gives them happiness, not the honor we give them. Objection 3. This is very similar to what he said about wealth. All men desire happiness more than anything else. But the thing people seem to desire more than anything else is honor, because you will lose your livelihood, your money, your home, so to preserve your honor. Now, a minute ago, he said most people desire wealth. Now he's saying, well, maybe most people desire honor. I'll give up anything if I can just save my honor. Reply number 3, he says, that man desires honor above all else arises from his natural desire for happiness, from which honor results. It's not really the honor that they want. It's the happiness that comes from the virtue in you that causes people to honor you. Does that make sense? What we really want is the virtue. That makes us happy. The honors just come icing on the cake, I suppose you'd say. So we've talked about wealth, we've talked about honors. Next is fame or glory. Third article. Let's look at his answer. Does fame or glory make up our happiness? Well, he says, on the contrary, happiness is man's true good, but it happens that fame or glory is false. People become notorious, famous, sometimes for something they didn't do. Just because someone is famous doesn't really attest to anything. Certainly in this day and age, we have famous people who aren't really known for anything but being famous. Certainly not famous for anything good about them particularly. So our happiness, we don't want it to rest in something that could be a lie. And fame could be a lie. So he says, I answer that. Glory consists in being well known and praised. All right. But if you skip down a moment, he says, human knowledge is caused by the things known, whereas God's knowledge is the cause of things known. Let's keep following me on this, okay? Wherefore, the perfection of human good, which is called happiness, cannot be caused by human knowledge. Human beings knowing you can't cause you to be happy. They might know you because you're happy, because you have something about you that makes you happy, but they can't cause the happiness. God, on the other hand, actually can cause it. His knowledge of you is what makes you alive. It's what makes you you, what makes you who you are. It keeps you in existence. He causes all that is in you by his thought, but not people. People knowing about you doesn't do anything to you. Conversely, people not knowing about you doesn't do anything to you either. We don't need to be known. We need God to know us. So let me see if I said everything I wanted to say about that. All right. Also, he says that human knowledge, you skip down where he says furthermore, human knowledge often fails. Right? People don't know everything. Sometimes fame is an accident, right? Two people may be equally worthy of it, and one gets famous and one doesn't. Just through accident. The record of their life is kept in one case and it's lost in another case. Maybe many people, one of them's in the public eye and one of them's not, so no one hears about them. So human knowledge is limited, and fame is based on human knowledge. All right, so let's look at his objections for this. Objection 1, the saints have glory, right? And the saints are happy. So glory is happiness. It's the same. It's the same logical fallacy. His reply is, their glory is the glory from God. That's what makes them happy. The saints aren't happy because they're famous. The saints are happy because they partake of God's glory, not the glory given by men. Objection 2. All right. He says good is diffusive of itself. Good likes to spread out, right? Well, what spreads out more than fame? Fame spreads out. So fame must be happiness. Fame must be the good. His reply to that is only if it's true, right? A man's good, which through fame or glory is in the knowledge of many, if this knowledge be true, must be derived from the good existing in the man itself. That's what he just said in the previous one about honor. The fame, if it's true, comes from some good you already had. If it's not true, it's purposeless and meaningless. Objection 3. Happiness is the most enduring good. Happiness lasts. But fame lasts. That's what being famous means. People in 1,000 years will know you. Happiness lasts, fame lasts, so happiness is fame. His objection to that, his reply to that objection is fame has no stability. It is easily ruined by false report. You know, somebody who's well known now may not be well known in even 20 years. Certainly not in 100 or 500 years. Not to mention that you could spread lies about someone that could make their glory and reputation go down. And it wouldn't be based on truth, but it would still result in obscurity for them. So fame and glory are two fickle and fleeting things to place our happiness in. Okay, what's up next? What's the next candidate? Power. All right, if it's not wealth and virtue and wealth and honor and fame, maybe it's power. Let's go straight to the on the contrary. Power is not perfect, but happiness is. Here's why power isn't perfect. He quotes Boethius again, who says, "The power of man cannot relieve the gnawings of care, nor can it avoid the thorny path of anxiety." Just because you're powerful doesn't mean you won't be anxious, that you won't have problems. He also says, "Think you a man is powerful who is surrounded by attendants, whom he inspires with fear indeed, but whom he fears still more?" All right. Kings and rulers, they're very powerful, but they may be living in constant fear because they're afraid that those they rule over hate them and might rise up against them and throw them out. That doesn't sound like happiness, to live in constant fear. So Aquinas goes on and he says, "It is impossible for happiness to consist in power, and this for two reasons." And I put this on your worksheet to list 2 reasons. First of all, he says, power has the nature of principle. Happiness has the nature of a last end. This is philosophical talk for power is a tool, happiness is a goal. Nobody wants power just for itself. You want it because you can use it for things. But happiness is something we want for itself. So that's his reason number 1. Power is a tool, happiness is a goal. Okay, second reason. Power can be good or evil. You know, you can use your power for the good. You can use it for horrible, horrible evil. But happiness is only good. The good, the perfect happiness that we aspire to is always good. So he has knocked out power. But let's go through the objections and see what people on the other side had to say about it and how he refutes them. Okay. Objection 1. People want to be like God. And God's powerful. So people want to be powerful. All right. Objection to the, as a reply to that is, God's power is his goodness. God is only powerful. God's power consists in his goodness. Earthly power is not always good, as he just said. Now, on your worksheet, that's the only, is that the only objection? No, I'm looking in the wrong one. Okay, let's go back. Objection 2. Happiness is the perfect good, but the highest perfection for man is to be able to rule others. Happiness is perfection. Perfection is ruling others. So happiness is ruling others. Power. What's his reply? Only if you use it for the good. He keeps bringing that up, right? Power can be abused so horribly. It's not always a good thing. All right, objection 3. Happiness is supremely desirable. Okay, so it's the opposite of whatever all men hate. And what do all men hate? Being a slave. Everyone shuns servitude, he says. No one wants to be a slave. So that means everybody wants power. If everybody runs away from being a slave, they're running toward being in power. But again, he says servitude is a hindrance to the good use of power. Therefore it is that men naturally shun it. Servitude makes you unable to use power well, to do good things. Slaves are limited, and so they can't do the good that they would like to do. They don't have it in their power. But we don't shun servitude because we hate servitude. We hate it because it limits us. All right? And it only limits us in a good way. And only if we want to use the power that we might have to do good things, is servitude a negative? Now, I skipped over something. I just noticed that I did this. On your worksheet, I asked you, and this is under his I answer that, 4 reasons that prove that none of these 4 things that we've just looked at can possibly be the ultimate good, the ultimate goal of life. He says, first of all, happiness is our supreme good, so it's incompatible with any evil. And all these other things can be used evilly. But the thing that's our supreme good, our happiness, can't be something that can be evil. All right. Secondly, he says, happiness satisfies of itself. Happiness is enough. If I have complete and utter happiness, I don't need or want anything else. But all these things we've talked about, you might have them but still need other things and want other things. None of these things, these 4 things we just talked about, satisfies completely in and of themselves. Thirdly, since happiness is the perfect good, no evil can accrue to anyone therefrom, which goes back to the first point, right? Now, it can't be, not only can happiness not be something that can be used for evil, it can't cause evil in you. But all of these things can. Fourthly, because man is ordained to happiness through principles that are in him, since he is ordained thereto naturally. We naturally have, he says, ordained inside us the desire for this thing that is our ultimate good. But all those things we just mentioned come from outside you. It's not something implanted in you, it's something outside. They're all external circumstances. All right. So that's how he knocks out those 4 things. Let's say wealth and power and honor and fame. Okay. The 5th article is whether man's happiness consists in any bodily good. All right. So by bodily good, here he means health. Health and physical well-being. All right. So notice how we've moved. Those things we just talked about, they're kind of shallow. Wealth is the shallowest of all. We're kind of moving from the shallowest of all, and we're getting more and more and more noble in the things we're considering. All right. Power, a little more noble than just money. But health is more noble yet. And it seems like it might get harder for Aquinas to knock these ideas down. So let's see how he does. He says on page 142, man surpasses all other animals in regard to happiness. We have in us a God-given capacity for happiness greater than any of the other animals God created. He says, but there's lots of animals that outdo us in bodily strength. You know, lions are stronger and stags are faster and, you know, cheetahs are super fast, and we don't have fur to cover us up in the winter and keep us warm. We have to put on coats. So other animals seem physically better than we are. So how can our bodily health be our greatest good? And so he then, and I asked you to, did I ask you to list these? Yes, 2 reasons why health can't be our greatest good. He says, health is something we desire to preserve ourselves, right? We want to be healthy so we don't die right away. We want to be healthy so we can live life, so we can enjoy our friends, so we can see our children and grandchildren grow up. But the goal of anything can't be just to preserve that thing. He used the example of a ship. As a ship is entrusted to the captain that he may steer its course, so man is given over to his will and reason. All right? Now, it is evident that man is ordained to something as his end. Man is not the supreme good. You don't sail a ship just for the sake of the ship sailing. Captains don't sail ships just so the ship doesn't sink. Captains sail ship to get somewhere, to carry passages or to carry freight somewhere. Our bodies aren't, the point of life isn't just to stay alive. Life is more than that. Our happiness is more than that. Does that make sense? All right. So that was his first reason. You can't be your own goal. Nothing can be its own goal. And preserving yourself to stay alive for no reason, just to stay alive, doesn't make sense. All right. Secondly, he says, man consists of body and soul. And which is more important? Jesus said, fear not those who can kill the body, but those who have the power to throw the soul into hell. Right? The soul, bodies are very important. But we consist of two things. And just to preserve the outer shell can't possibly be the goal of life. If we're ignoring our soul, we need to do both. All right? So bodily health can't be our ultimate good. There's only one objection on this article. He says, he quotes Sirach, there is no riches above the riches of the health of the body. All right? Health is the greatest thing, better than riches. Okay? I would agree that health is better than riches. But he says, this is Aquinas' answer, just as the body is ordained to the soul, so are external goods ordained to the body itself. All right? We get external things to keep us healthy, the goods that keep us healthy. But the purpose of that is the support of the body, because the body is ordained for the care of the soul. All right? So we should prefer the good of the soul above bodily health. Now, we want both. Both are good. But if we have to choose, and if we have to choose the thing that's the meaning of life, the purpose of our being here, we'd have to choose the good of our souls, not the good of our bodies, which frankly, eventually are going to die. All right? We should take good care of them because they are created by God, given to us by God, and destined for resurrection. But we shouldn't chase after health at the expense of our souls. All right? So that was a pretty serious hypothesis for what might be our ultimate good, but we're not there yet. All right, sixth article. Whether man's happiness consists in pleasure. All right, let's cut straight to the on the contrary. I like this one. Anyone that chooses to look back on his past excesses will perceive that pleasures typically have a sad ending. Have you ever eaten too much Christmas dinner? Have you ever eaten too many cookies? Too much chocolate? You guys know me. I have eaten too many cookies. I'm just telling you. You guys know I have a weakness, and you know what it is. I don't feel so good afterwards. I have eaten too much at Thanksgiving dinner and been miserable for the rest of the day. It was pleasurable while I was doing it, don't get me wrong. It was delicious. But pleasures, especially when taken to excess, often have a sad ending, as this quote tells us. I can attest that too many chocolate chip cookies has a sad ending. All right, so he answers that in the I answer that. This is about halfway down that paragraph. We must therefore consider that every delight is a proper accident resulting from happiness. Now, accident doesn't mean when you fall down and hurt yourself, okay, and you didn't mean to. Accident means something you have that you don't have to have. For example, I am a human being and I am a woman. This is the essence of who I am. But having blue eyes or blonde hair or being short or a little stouter than I would like. These are accidents. They wouldn't have to be that way. They could be different. But the essence of who I am could not be different, okay? So he's saying a delight is just something that happens from happiness. The happiness comes first, and you take pleasure in the happiness. Pleasure causes happiness. Pleasure does not equal happiness. Does that make sense? I think it does. So that's what he means by accident in that. Pleasure is just an accident. It's something that comes along and attaches itself to the happiness that's already there. It's not equal to it. Okay, let's take a look at his objections here. It would seem that man's happiness consists in pleasure. Because happiness is the last end. It's something you desire for itself. But pleasure is something you desire for itself, right? Like, you don't desire pleasure because it gives you something else. You just desire pleasure because it's pleasing. So it must be the thing we all strive for. Let's look at his reply. Delight, or pleasure, is nothing else than the appetite's rest in good. Okay, what gives you pleasure? Okay, just delighting, resting in something that's already good in and of itself. Oh, shoot. If there's something else good in and of itself, then pleasure isn't the ultimate good. Objection 2. Oh, I'm sorry, it's objection 3. There is an objection 2, by the way. Peter Kreeft does not put every single objection to every single article in this shorter summa. That's why there's an objection 1 and an objection 3. In objection 3, he says, desire is for good, so what all desire is best. This is the same argument he used about riches, and he used about fame, I think. Everybody wants it, so it must be the best thing. Everybody wants the good. Everyone wants pleasure, so the good must be pleasure. All right, his reply. All desire delight in the same way as they desire good. Yet they desire delight by reason of the good and not conversely. You desire pleasure because you have the good. You don't desire the good because you have pleasure. Pleasure, good causes pleasure. Good does not equal pleasure. All right. All right, 7th article. Whether some good of the soul. So now we're asking ourselves about something much more lofty than just fame or wealth or power or even health. The soul. Is some good of the soul man's happiness? Okay? On the contrary, as St. Augustine says, that which constitutes the life of happiness is to be loved for its own sake. But man is not to be loved for his own sake. But whatever is in man is to be loved for God's sake. All right? If we make an idol, even of a good of our soul, if we make an idol of prayer, of devotion, of, I'm trying to think of goods of the soul, in and of itself, with no relationship to God, it's not a good. Because anything that belongs to us is not to be loved for its own sake. It's to be loved because it's a gift of God. It's to be loved because of its relationship with God. The soul is of value. It's of infinite value because it is the gift and creation of God, not because of itself. Right? He has one objection here. It's objection 3. All right. Let me see how I phrased this one. Okay. So he says happiness is something belonging to man. Happiness is a property of human beings, but it is not something belonging to the body as shown above. He's just said that pleasure and health are not the ultimate good. So if pleasure and health, things having to do with our bodies, are not, then it must be the soul by process of elimination. And let's look at his reply to that. Happiness itself is an inherent good of the soul, but that which makes man happy is something outside his soul. We don't create our own good. You know, we're full of a world of people trying to create their own goods, chasing after these things, and sometimes chasing after goods of the soul, thinking through meditation and all sorts of spiritual exercises unrelated to their relationship with God, that they will achieve happiness. But there's no happiness outside of God. We don't conjure it up in and of ourselves. It comes to us from outside. All right? So he's got one more effort. Whether any created good constitutes man's happiness. Is there any created thing in the entire universe that is our goal, our end, our happiness, the goal of life? All right? He says, on the contrary, as the soul is the life of the body, so God is man's life of happiness. He appeals to Augustine again. And he says, then in his I answer that, it is impossible for any created good to constitute man's happiness. Happiness is the perfect good which satisfies the appetite altogether. When you have the perfect good, there's nothing else you want. Now, the thing we want is the universal perfect good, right? It's only in God. We know this. We know this because every single thing we chase for on earth, it doesn't satisfy. Our hearts are restless and until they rest in you, to appeal to Augustine again. Nothing else satisfies. So that it can't be our final goal, our end. If it were, it would completely satisfy. Right. There's one objection under this article. It's number 3. Man is made happy by that which satisfies his natural desire. But man's natural desire does not reach out to a good surpassing his capacity. When we want something good, we always want something understandable and reachable according to our nature, our created nature, and we're limited, we're finite. We can't naturally, this objection says, have a desire for something infinite because we're not infinite. Here's what Aquinas answers to that in reply to objection 3. Created good is not less than that good of which man is capable as of something intrinsic in him. We cannot produce unlimited perfect good. But it is less than the good of which he is capable as of an object, and which is infinite. We can't produce unlimited good, but we can want unlimited good. And that is God. And it is a treasure when you know that and you have that, because the things that disrupt the world, like the world is being disrupted right now, they affect you, but they don't ruin you the way they do when you think that those things you're losing are your good. Now, I was reminded when I was reading this, and I had put a note to look at a book called The Way of the Pilgrim, and the Pilgrim Continues His Way. It's a Russian story of a Russian spiritual experience. That's not a very good summary, but and at the very end of it, he talks a little bit about this. Every human wish, every undertaking, every action has its purpose, as its purpose, the satisfaction of self-love, the seeking of the man's own happiness. The satisfaction of this demand accompanies the natural man all through his life. We all want happiness. But the human spirit is not satisfied with anything that belongs to the senses, and the innate love of self never abates its urgency. It never goes away. Nothing we can perceive with our senses fills it, but it never goes away. And so desires develop more and more. The endeavor to attain happiness grows stronger, fills the imagination, and incites the feelings to the same end. The flood of this inward feeling and desire as it develops is the natural arousing to prayer. The author of The Pilgrim Continues His Way says that that endless desire we have, that hunger, and nothing here fills it. Nothing here fills it. That's actually a gift. It's not a curse, it's a gift, because it drives us to prayer. It drives us to seek it in the only place it can be found. And it's not going to be found here in this life. Little doses of it from God, but not completely. So that hunger, that yearning for the good that we search for here and there, and riches and power and health, and it's supposed to be a spur to drive us to God and drive us to prayer. So it is a gift. It is not a curse. Anyway, okay, so that is our look at, a very, very short look at the shorter Summa. Like I said, this was just a little nibble, barely a crumb, of the riches of St. Thomas. But I hope it gave you an idea, first of all, of what the medieval scholastic mind was like, so organized and so desirous of taking everything we know and synthesizing it into one complete whole that we can get our minds around, to chew on, to think on. But it's not an end of itself, it's a pathway. All right, and to that end, we are going to do another paper. Now, because of circumstances and because the Divine Comedy, it just takes 9 weeks to read, and it just does, and that's what it takes. We have not done one of our essays, Lost Tools of Writing essays, in a long time, not since before Christmas. So we're going to go back and we're going to review that. We were taking 3 weeks on these. We're going to take 2, but I'm going to help you along on it, okay? So I need to move stuff over and get my whiteboard out. Just a moment. By the way, you could stop the video and you can go get your Lost Tools of Writing workbook. All right, it might take you a while. Look around. But if you pause the video, I will still be here. So you go do that. I will get my whiteboard and I will meet you back here. Are you back? I'm not back. All right. Okay. I'm going to get out of the view here. Oh dear. I apologize for that. I should have taken my phone off the hook, but I didn't. So if that's one of you calling me, I will call you back later. All right. So you might remember that when we were doing these papers, we were doing should so-and-so have done something. And what we're reading and what we're doing right now, that's just not going to work. Really? Oh, let's see if it's one of you. It's just a telemarketer. Oh. Okay. So the question I want you to ask, I need a piece of paper, just a minute. Oh my goodness. Okay. The question we're going to ask is this: whether reason is more important than emotion in knowing God. If it happens again, I'm going to get up and take it off the hook. That's what's happening. Okay. So this is not a should so and so have done something question. Now, the reason we're looking into this question is a lot of people feel that religion, faith is all about reasoning out the facts. And a lot of people feel that we should just follow our hearts and be very emotional. Some people think that if you're emotional during a worship service, that makes you more godly. And if you're not a jump around, be excited sort, that makes you less godly. Also, we just looked at a man who devoted his life to using reason, using the mind God gave him to learn to love God better. So we are going to spend 2 weeks instead of 3. We're going to do 2, but like I said, I'm going to help you out here in a minute. You'll see. Writing a paper about this. Now, you will remember that the first thing we did every time is we did an A in I chart. I know we have not been very successful in getting I's, things that are just interesting. If we come up with one, if one comes up, into my head in the spur of the moment, I will write it down. But mostly I'm going to do an A and N chart. I'm going to do one right here for you. That doesn't mean you can't add to it. But this is a hard topic. And because we haven't done one of these in a long time, I thought I would just get you off to a start, okay? So, I'm going to look this up if I can. So we have A's, affirmative, which means yes, reason is more important. We have N's. No, reason is not more important than emotion. Emotion is very important, okay? Here are some ideas that I came up with. First of all, let's list some affirmatives. Reason is more important. Reason is the prime thing, okay? My first reason. Scripture says, love the Lord your God with all your mind. All right, so that sounds like reason. Sounds like a thinking love. All right. Here's another reason I came up with. Humans have reason in a way that animals don't. So, reason must be the most important thing. All right, I'm paraphrasing when I write. Because God created us this way. God created us with reason in a way that he didn't create the animals, and so that must mean it's the most important thing in our relationship to him. Faith is based on teaching. And teaching comes to us from knowledge based on reason. Okay. Reason is a good apologetics tool. You know what apologetics is? It does not mean apologizing to people and saying you're sorry. It means offering a defense or an argument for something. And apologetics, Christian apologetics specifically, is giving sound, rational reasons why Christianity is true. And it's something we can use to evangelize. So it must be really important. Love is not a feeling, but an action. All right, so, you know, emotion, love isn't just an emotion. Love is something we do. So emotion can't play a huge part in that. I'm trying to find, okay. Even animals have emotion. So emotion is not something that sets us apart from the animals. So it can't be something specific to us. Therefore, it can't be specific to our personal relationship with God. Actually, we're going to take away the N, and I'm just going to use all this space for the A. And then I'm going to erase it, and we're going to use all the space for the N. Feelings can mislead us, right? That whole follow your heart thing isn't always a good thing. I'm telling you, it's about those chocolate chip cookies. I let emotion get away with me, all right? And then I see the pleasure came to a bad end. Here, I'm sorry. I can't read my writing without my glasses. Okay, Aquinas shows God's existence can be proved. And so that must mean reason is important, because the first thing in your relationship with someone is to know they exist. We need to obey God no matter what our feelings are, right? Maybe I don't feel like being kind to my brother or sister. Maybe I don't feel like obeying my parents. Don't care. You still need to do it. And that's a mental decision, right? I decide to obey despite my feelings. Okay? So this is what I came up with A's, affirmatives. Reason is more important. This is not an exhaustive list. I hope you come up with some more. Right? This is what I was able to do. Now, I'm going to go ahead and erase this. You can obviously run the video back or pause it. Let's look at some N's. That reason is not more important, or that reason is not more important than emotions. Okay. First of all, Scripture says, love God with all your heart. I used my own reason from the A against myself. We are told to love God and our neighbors, who is everyone. God wants our hearts, not just outward motions. He doesn't want us to just do it. He wants us to do it wholeheartedly. Aquinas brought this up. Most of us can't reason our way to God. Several sub-points on this. We have not enough time. We have not enough smarts. So because of that, we rely maybe more on emotion than reason. God created us to be feeling creatures, emotional creatures. So he must think we should use it. Reason can mislead us. right? If your premises are false, your conclusion's going to be false. In fact, all those objections that we just read, and Aquinas replied to them, many of those were based on logical fallacies, poor reasoning. Reasoning can mislead us. Here's a couple of reasons why that's true. We may not have all the facts, and we may not understand the facts we do have. We may just misunderstand them. I hope you guys can see this okay. How about this? God is too big to be understood. Therefore, reason is not sufficient. Aquinas proves that God's existence can only be proved in a limited way. All right, remember that? We talked about the fact that, yes, we can prove God to a certain extent, but it's a limited knowledge of God, that knowledge we have. Right? This is not an exhaustive list. This is just what I came up with. All right? I'm going to go ahead and erase these. Now, I have two groups of you. One is the group, my first year. You have never done Lost Tools of Writing with me before, and this is your first year. First, I want to talk to you guys. In your student book, we had gotten up to Essay 5. We're going to repeat Essay 5. All right, we're just going to repeat Essay 5. Take these off. Because it's been so long since we've done these. And so if you look in Essay 5, you will see the arrangement template, the thing that's an outline. Okay, find that. Find the arrangement template. I want to go through that with you. We're going to do this again. All right? Let's go over what each part means. What, and you second years, this also will help you, okay? The exordium. What is the exordium? All right? It is the attention getter, right? It's the thing that we use to draw the reader in. A quote, a question, a command. Then we have the section called the division. First of all, we look on something we all agree. In this case, we all agree that knowing God is important. We all agree God should be followed. We all agree God made human beings. These are all things we agree on. Then we have the disagreement. But some think reason is the key element in man for following God, and others feel that it's not. Then you're going to give me your thesis. What do you think? Reason is the most important element in following God, or reason is not as important as emotion in following God. All right? Then after, okay, so that's the disagreement. You're going to give the thesis and the counter thesis. Some people think reason is most important, some people don't. Then you give your thesis. I have 3 reasons. That's the enumeration. Proof 1, proof 2, proof 3, and you list them. Then we do the proof section. Proof 1, can you come up with 3 subproofs? 3 supporting reasons why that's so. Proof 2, same thing. Proof 3, same thing. Then the conclusion. Restate your thesis, summarize your proof, list your 3 proofs again, and then tell me who cares and why. Why should anyone care? And why should they care? All right? Does that come back to you? Now, remember, I'm only this week asking you to mull over the A and I chart that we just did together and do an outline. If you want me to check over your outline, you may scan it in and email it to me and I will go over it. If you feel confident that you know what's going on with your outline, don't bother, okay? You can just do it on your own. Next week, we will do the writing, and I will remind you about the different elements, the elocution elements we were adding in, okay? Now, let me take a moment to speak to those of you who are doing Lost Tools of Writing 2. We got into those judicial essays and they were just kind of a headache, frankly. So I want you in your student book on page 14, there is the complete persuasive essay outline. That's what you're going to do. We're not going to add any of that other stuff in. You're going to do the full out complete persuasive essay outline, which has all the elements that I just mentioned, except for the narratio. Your narratio could include some information about Aquinas' Summa, or you have my permission to leave the narratio out. Then you are also doing the refutation. Okay, you've got to give supports for the counter thesis, which you can just use on, if you're doing an A, use your N chart. If you're doing an N, use your A chart for that. And the rest of it is pretty self-explanatory. I wish we were not doing it this way. I wish I were meeting separately with you Lost Tools 2 people, but this is the way it is. So I think we can make this work out. Please, please, please call me with questions or concerns, or I don't remember how to do this, Mrs. Ferguson. Call me, email me, and I will walk through it together with you. Next week, you Lost Tools 2 people, we will also go over the elocution elements. We'll review some of the schemes and tropes, but I'm not going to require a bunch of them of you, all right? So the main thing I want of you this week is to produce an outline based on whether reason is more important than emotion in following God, in our walk with God. And I'm here ready and willing to talk to you about it, all right? Maybe you'd like to get a discussion going underneath this video in the comments, and then you could discuss it with each other, okay? So that was thing 2 of the 3 things we wanted to accomplish. Next week, I'll talk some more about the paper. Like I said, the elocution elements, I'll remind you. Your workbooks also have examples in the back. Remember examples of the written essays? You can read those and remind yourself what the different elements look like and sound like. Okay, the third thing I want to cover this week is the new section we're about to go into for the next couple of weeks. That is the Reformation. This is a huge, huge topic, and we're just going to kind of skim the surface. But rather than just talk to you about the Reformation, I want to give you some things to read, documents to follow the rise of the Reformation and the aftermath. You could argue that the Reformation, the effects of the Reformation are much more important than the Renaissance. In fact, the Reformation and the Enlightenment are the 2 kind of babies of the Renaissance that have changed our world and turned us into the modern world that we see around us today. The Enlightenment period sort of belongs to next year's history study, so we're going to defer that until the rise of the modern world. But the Reformation is sort of on the edge. It's not exactly the Middle Ages. It's not exactly the modern world yet. It's on the edge. But the Reformation didn't just happen overnight. Martin Luther didn't just wake up, post his 95 Theses on the door at Wittenberg, and then it was the Reformation. It was something that had been stewing for a couple hundred years before that happened. And it's something the aftermath of which went on for several hundred years. So we're just going to kind of do a survey of that period. So I sent you some documents. You should have already been emailed these. Let me just a second, let me grab my paper. All right, so some of the documents have little introductions, little paragraphs that are written introducing you to the document itself. I also sent you some reading questions that I would like you to fill out as you read. The first one is called Unum Sanctum. It is a document from the early 1300s. This is Pope Boniface the Eighth. This is the Boniface from the Divine Comedy. This is the one where the guy with his head down in the hole, remember, and his feet sticking out on fire. He's like, "Oh, Boniface, is that you? Are you here early?" It's this Boniface. All right. This is the early 1300s. Martin Luther is 1517. 200 years before. We have things going on that are going to lead to problems later, okay? Unum Sanctum is a papal pronouncement to the French king about how much power the Pope has versus how much power the King of France has. I will let you read it. It's not very long, all right? I also sent you a document called Defensor Pacis by Marsilius of Padua. He was quite the thinker. So I'm going to let you read that. I sent you 2 documents from the Council of Constance, the Sacrosancta, and an excerpt from Frequens. And I also sent you, I think I sent you some documents about John Wycliffe, early English reformer. And then finally I sent you a dialogue called Julius Exclusus, or Julius Excluded from Heaven. And it's comedy. And we're going to talk about the guy who everyone pretty much agrees wrote Julius Exclusus. It's a pretty biting commentary on opinions about the Pope at the time. So I think that it will be easier for you to follow my arguments and follow my line of thought after you've read the documents and answered the questions. So I would like you to read those, answer the questions to the best of your ability, and then in next week's lecture, we'll do part 1 of the Reformation, the pre-Reformation issues, and all the way up till the storm broke, basically, over Martin Luther. That's kind of a joke, because he really did get caught in a thunderstorm and said he would devote himself to God and become a monk if God rescued him from the thunderstorm. Okay, maybe it wasn't funny. I thought it was humorous. Okay. Any questions, problems, concerns, comments, please call me or email me. I'm going to say this over and over and over again. And some of you are, so I appreciate that. And until then, happy reading, stay safe, stay well, stay kind to your families, and I will see you here next week. Bye-bye.